tonight designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American. Yet today our nation is drowning in division and incivility.
Voters say they dread the 2024 election
I
and
guess
find
I am
politics exhausting.
There we go. Okay,
2
cool.
in 3 Americans think the country is on the wrong track. And 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
Prices are up 18% since 2020. More than half of the U.S. population has little access to childcare. 85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans want to believe a leader who says, "You can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry." President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket lines where auto workers are demanding more wages and job security.
First president
So
to do that in
start,
history.
You recently reacted by praising Ronald Reagan for firing air traffic controllers in the 1980s, saying, "You strike, you're fired." Would you fire thousands of
Why are they going
striking
after
auto
Tim
workers
Scott
today,
first?
Senator?
Obviously, the President of the United States cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first bill in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to overpromise yet underdeliver. One of the challenges that we have in the current negotiations is that they want 4-day French work weeks, but more money. They want more benefits, working fewer hours. That is simply not going to stand. I sat in a finance committee hearing when a widow came before the committee who was promised pensions from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000 a month. We must make sure that we honor the commitments that we make, and one of the ways that we do that, do not overpromise and then underdeliver and leave the taxpayers on the hook. I'll say this, Joe Biden should not be on the picket line. He should be on the southern border working to close our southern border.
What does that have to do with anything? Wow, on Univision?
Leading to the deaths of 70,000 Americans in
He
the
just
last
gave
12 months.
so many
because
people
of
whiplash.
fentanyl. It is devastating. Every county in America is now a border county because fentanyl has devastated Americans in every single state.
This is a bad.
I will also say 6 million illegal crossings.
This has nothing
since
to
Joe Biden has
do
taken
with the
office.
workers' strike.
And
It has
eliminated
nothing to do
Title
with
42.
jobs.
The one thing he should do is finish the wall, reinstate
God,
Title
dude.
42, and
Bad
get the
optics.
job done.
I feel like this
Well,
guy's a
I can
plant.
promise you that we are going to have a lot of questions on the border and immigration. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy and jobs, and especially want to talk about this strike for just a moment more. Mr. Ramaswamy, you've said you really empathize with the strikers. You're standing next to Senator Scott. Do you agree with what he said, or do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country.
Aren't the union bosses
I've been through hardship growing
elected?
up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in nursing homes in Southwest Ohio to make ends meet and pay off our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice.
Looking good.
But victimhood is a choice, and we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know what, if I was giving advice to those workers, I would say go picket in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. That's really where the protest needs to be. Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up interest rates and mortgage rates. At the same time, wages remaining stagnant. What we need is to deliver economic growth in this country. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy, put people back to work by no longer paying them more money to stay at home, stabilize the U.S. dollar itself, and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy. That is how we unleash American exceptionalism. And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision. That is an American vision that we embrace economic growth, and capitalism is still the best system wisdom known to man to lift us up from poverty, and we should not apologize for it. That's what it means to be an American.
Together, the CEOs of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis make 336 times the number of rank and file workers. That's just part of a wider income inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls
America.
1/5 of all income.
America.
Vice President Pence, last week you said you side with American workers, but you also support how these companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank
Which is it? That's a
Univision
good
and
question.
Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful forum. Look, I do disagree with something Tim Scott just said. Joe Biden doesn't belong on a picket line. He belongs on the unemployment line. Look, I'm from the second leading manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about manufacturing. And I got to tell you, while the union bosses are talking about class warfare and talking about disparity in wages, I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics has failed. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. Auto workers and all American workers are feeling it.
That's been going on for decades. It's not a Biden problem.
Joe Biden's Green New Deal agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit. We ought to repeal the Green New Deal, get rid of the mandates and subsidies that are driving American gasoline automotive manufacturing into the graveyard. And beyond that also, as President of the United States, I'll be standing with workers all across America, and I'll be standing for the right to work of every American to join a union or not join a union as they decide.
Get out of here.
Scott,
Yeah, so they're pretty much all anti-union.
No doubt that Joe Biden needs to be fired. That's why I'm running for president. I look forward to being the next president of the United States. I'll also say, I know America can do for anyone what she's done for me. It's why we're focusing on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. Growing up in a single-parent household, I wondered if the American dream would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news for every single child, whether you're in the inner cities of Chicago or the rural parts of Iowa. America and the dream, it is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. God bless these United States of America.
He's acting like the debate's over.
You raise your hand.
I think we need to look at
He's getting a little
exactly what
desperate.
happened. Biden showed up on that picket line, but why are those workers actually there? It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised the inflation. So when you look at the fact that we are paying higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, $7,000 more a year for families, what we need to do is I came out with an economic plan, eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America, collapsing those brackets. Let's get rid of unfair distortions like the state and local tax that they give to wealthy people in blue states and not paid by red states. And let's make sure we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary.
The strikers
they
said
made
it
the
themselves.
Taxes permanent.
And
Let's
it's
focus
true.
on what it
It's
takes
the
to get more
profits
cash in the pockets
of
of workers.
these
That's when we'll be
car
able to deal
manufacturer
with strikes
giants.
like this, not sitting on a picket line like Joe Biden is.
Thank you, Governor Haley. We have other questions to get to about
So
economy.
anti-worker.
Allow me to.
I just have to, I'm sorry.
Allow me to.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in because we're missing the point and every other network is missing the point. The reason why people are striking in Detroit is because Joe Biden's interference with capital markets and with free markets.
That's
the
not
subsidies,
true.
we're subsidizing
That's
the
not
automakers
true.
and we're subsidizing the cars and a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when you decide that we're going to take all of your taxpayer monies, take $1 billion, subsidize a certain type of vehicle, and the batteries come from China. China controls 85% of the rare earth minerals. They're called rare earth because they're measured in parts per million. China is moving 100,000 pounds of earth in Indonesia, in Africa. They're literally destroying the planet so that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized here. That's why they're striking, because they need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car. Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
We're going to keep the topic of economy, but allow follow question to Governor Christie. The government will shut down if Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist proteges, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP. If the government shuts down, should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They
blame
get sent
Republicans
down
in
there to
general.
do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for a very long time. And let's be honest about this with the voters. You know, during the Trump administration, they added $7 trillion in national debt. And now the Biden administration has put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the can down the road. And the inflation that Nikki spoke about is absolutely right, and it's caused by government spending. And that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight. And yet we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides in his basement and won't answer as to why he's raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions for the people you talk about who are suffering. And if the government closes, it's the blame. It is to the blame of everyone in Washington, D.C., who has failed to do their job and just plays to the grandstand.
The next question is for Governor DeSantis.
It's just funny that they think they can all speak for the auto strikers. Like, listen to the strikers have been very clear.
Please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion.
Now
to the
even
debt.
Ron's
That
like
set
going
the
after
stage
Trump.
for the
Like they all
inflation
have
that
to
we
go
have. Now, I
after
can tell
Trump.
you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
Ilya, you mentioned me in the question. I just want to address
They brought up our
I'm going to go to
administration's
Senator Scott, but I have a question that is on the minds of a lot of moms and dads and Americans, and I know that you've been thinking about it because childcare costs, they are up. They're topping $10,000 per month. Some families are spending up to half of their income on childcare, and they're having to decide, is it worth it for me to work, or does it not make sense for me financially? In 3 days, the billions of dollars in pandemic-era funding is going to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden eligibility for child care assistance. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can you tell them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Certainly one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over $15,000 per child. In the Build Back Broker plan, he called it a Build Back Better plan, it was going up to $29,000. The way we fix that problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back.
Oh my God. Every single answer of theirs, cut taxes.
We actually lowered
it doesn't actually fucking help anything.
70% on the federal level. For dual income households by 60%. Then we went a step further. We doubled the child tax credit and made it refundable. By doing that, more parents had more resources to make the decisions how to take care of their family.
Do a tax
let
credit.
The American people keep their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
Okay, we're going to give you 15 seconds. Go ahead, and then we're going to the border.
Ilya mischaracterized a part of my view. I think this artificial division is unhelpful in our party. The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage. The real divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character, and the fringe minority in the Democrat Party that has a chokehold over that party. That's the real divide. So this populism is artificial.
Ilya?
We need to unite this party.
We are
going to talk about immigration and the border.
Child care. We have
I think we're going to go on. You have to. We have all these questions. We're going to get to you. We're going to come back to you. There's a lot of time.
We're about child care. Nobody answered the question. In North Dakota, we knew that the cliff was coming. We knew that there was going to be millions of people without it. And so guess what?
He has to insert himself because
we passed legislation because child care.
We will get you some questions, but you're going to have to let us move on. We are going to the border next.
Child care is workforce infrastructure.
And I haven't been given a chance to
In 1984, President Ronald Reagan said the following.
The idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though some time back they may have entered illegally.
2 years later, President Reagan granted amnesty to nearly 3 million immigrants, something no Democrat or Republican president has done since.
Wow.
Governor Christie. As
that's the
governor
only
of a
time I'll
non-border
say
state
that
in
Reagan was
2010,
based.
You supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages. Where do you stand now on a path to citizenship for 11 million of undocumented immigrants?
Well, the problem is that since no one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago, we're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border, every day. And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law. They are letting it go. And by the way, they announced during the presidential race they were going to let it go.
What law?
And we need to have a president who acts like I did as governor.
Is still in effect,
enforce
is it not?
the law. First and foremost. And that means what I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol to make sure that we stop the flow of fentanyl over the border, but also to make sure that we send a much different message. We want you here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will send you back across the border from which you came. And the fact is that until we set a law and order agenda in this country, not only now but in the future, we won't be able to continue this. And I'll tell you this, Donald Trump failed on this as well. He said he was going to build a wall across the whole border. He built 52 miles of wall and said Mexico would pay for it. Guess what? I think if Mexico knew that he was only going to build 52 miles, they might have paid for the 52 miles.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, Governor.
I mean, he has a point.
Most illegal immigrants are coming from countries south
the thing
of the border.
is, like,
you've seen the Fox News drone. It's captured
you
the
literally
steady
cannot finish that wall without eminent domain. You would have to seize private property of American citizens. It's impossible to finish the wall.
Live. In the last decade, the U.S. has spent nearly $55 billion to address the root causes of migration. But crime, poverty, and corruption, they persist, and the number of migrants is only growing. Are we wasting our money?
Well, what happens is when Joe Biden waved the green flag, it told everybody to come. And now we've seen 6 million people cross the border. We've had more fentanyl that have killed Americans in the Iraq, Vietnam, or Afghanistan wars combined. We need to make sure that we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. So we have to secure the border. The way we do that is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. You see what's happening in Philadelphia right now. It's got to stop. We need to make sure we put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. I spent 400 miles down that border, and I'm telling you, Border Patrol agents aren't allowed to do their job. Let's go back to remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
What about
and
the aid that we've been? What about the aid that federal taxpayers are paying?
Majority of migrants
it's not working.
Aren't coming from Mexico to begin with.
Right now is to secure the border, the southern border, the northern border, period.
You would cut
we
off
need
aid
to
to the
keep
region?
Americans safe, and right now Americans are not safe. Only when we fix the immigration system, only when we get the border secure, should we ever look at putting any more money into this. Our money should be about keeping Americans safe. We're not doing that. Joe Biden's not doing that. And you mentioned Congress and shutting down government.
Nothing but fear-mongering, no actual solutions.
In 4 years, in 40 years, Congress has only delivered a budget on time 4 times in 40 years. If they don't keep the government open, they should not get paid. No pay, no budget. That's the way.
Hey, I actually really fucking agree with that.
Governor DeSantis, China invested $12 billion in Latin America just last year. They signed strategic partnerships with 7 countries, including Mexico. And China's military ties to the region now include arms sales and training exercises. Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess is because elites in D.C. for far too long have chosen surrender over strength when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to have real hard power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions. We're going to have economic independence from China, where we're decoupling our economy. And
maybe if America stayed the fuck out of Latin America for the past several decades, China wouldn't come in and give them a hand.
Buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. We shouldn't have Confucius institutes. So you see a country in decline, our power's in decline.
That's the solution. Racism.
Surpass us this decade, and if they do that, that's going to affect every single American household. As your president, I am not going to let that happen. I'm going to reverse this country's decline.
God,
we are going to choose strength,
not
surrender when it comes to the CCP.
America's not a country in decline.
Oh, Ron DeSantis? Yeah, no, he's also called Meatball Ron.
Undocumented immigrants and their children. Even if
no, seriously, Drew, if you ever see him smile, it's the most disturbing fucking thing.
Will you expel U.S. citizens?
His laugh is
the first thing I want to say
even
is
worse.
I agree with everything. The Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue.
No, they're not.
Militarize the southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to Mexico and Central America to end the incentives to come across. But I do go a step further. You're right about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship
gross,
of illegal
disgusting,
immigrants in this country. Now the left will
fuck you,
about the
it's
Constitution and the 14th
unconstitutional.
Amendment. The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here. And as the father of 2 sons, it is hard for me to look them in the eye and say, you have to follow the law when our own government fails to follow its own laws. That's how we really go the distance and solve this problem and restore the rule of law in the United States of America, because that is part of what it even means to be an American.
Yeah, no, newsflash, if you're not able to pick up on it.
Yeah, there's no doubt the fact that when you think of the Constitution,
the Republican Party hates children. They want children to suffer, especially if they're foreigners.
It's been applied to illegal immigration. So the challenge that we face is, in fact, one that has to do with whether or not the people that come here are under the jurisdiction of our laws. And frankly, if you come here illegally, you are not. Now, surviving a Supreme Court argument is something I can't tell you. But from a perspective of the Constitution, I think it's simple that clearly it was designed for slavery and not for illegal immigration. I'll go one step further, though. When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people, and I appreciate that, because last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for.
Yeah.
For a little while. And so, you know, I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well.
Here we go.
People who are tainted by a broken system. And it's
Here
not the
we go.
fault of anybody who's involved.
Some of us are tainted.
Excuse me. Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting.
Oh, it's blood sports now. Vivek can't take it because he is such. Oh my God. Such a slime ball.
No one can understand
Exactly.
your message.
So if I may, I agree with Ron DeSantis on China. When every other CEO expanded into China, you know what I did with my first company? We opened a subsidiary in China. But you know what I did that was different than every other company? We got the hell out of there. And when I started my next company, Strive, right when it...
That's woo! Nikki Haley coming with a haymaker.
I made a commitment that we would never do business in China. And I will say something.
You have more than time to explain your point.
Well, if I was interrupted by a lot of people here, and I want to be respectful because I believe these
were respectful last debate.
But I do not believe in these.
Dude.
We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes,
fuck,
in
dude.
honor of Ronald Reagan's library, if I may, from one admirer of Ronald Reagan to another, from one admirer of Reagan to another, we cannot sit here and violate Reagan's 11th commandment.
Fucking Jesus Christ, dude.
Let's have a policy debate. Let us have a policy debate. Let's have a policy debate.
These clowns are not fit to run anything, let alone their mouths.
In 2017, the Trump-Pence administration canceled DACA, which put the legal status of 600,000 Dreamers in the hands of the courts. Dreamers work and they pay taxes. As president, if the Supreme Court ends DACA, would you work with Congress to reach a permanent solution for Dreamers?
Well, first, let me say I'm glad Vivek pulled out of his business deal in 2018 in China. That must have been about the time you decided to start voting in presidential elections. So we're nice to have you participating in elections. So let me speak to this issue. Number one, I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. We used economic power to bring the Mexican government to the table. We built hundreds of miles of border wall. And despite what's said here today, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And as President of the United States, I can do it again. And the truth is we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation. And we have to secure the southern border of the United States of America. I know how to do it, and we will do it again. Let me say one other thing about China. Let me say one other thing about China.
Would you negotiate with Congress to give a solution to the problem that Dreamers have right now? They are on a limbo.
Well, let me tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years, although it seemed longer. But you know, something I've done different than everybody on this stage is I've actually secured reform in Congress. You know, Ron, you talk a really good game about cutting spending, but you've increased spending in Florida by 30%. When I was a member of Congress in 2006, right after Hurricane Katrina, Dana, you remember it, we stood our ground. I led House conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget. It can be done, but as I said in the last debate, I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready
at what cost?
To step up,
cut spending at the expense of what?
United States, build a military fitted to our times, and we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control once and for all.
I got mentioned on that one. On the other side of this break, and I propose to go to a break. How will these candidates make America safer as rising crime plagues our cities? Debate night.
My God.
In moments.
It's just as insufferable as the first debate. There's absolutely no solutions being levied.
Welcome back. It was on a slow boil.
It's just a blame game, like, honestly.
A slow boil until I think what triggered it was when Vivek Ramaswamy invoked Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not criticize another Republican, and everyone looked at him and said, say what?
Yeah, gigantic hypocrite. He's just an empty suit. He's not there to become president. He's there to dick ride Trump, and he doesn't stand a chance in hell. He's just there to boost his name so he can, get a book deal or, get more money for whatever fucking shit he's doing entrepreneurially, if that's a word. Yeah. Yeah, so far it's insufferable. Tim Scott's desperate. He's hella desperate right now. He needs to attack. He needs to get his numbers up. Mike Pence is dropping off. He's very uninteresting. Doug Burgum, you see the desperation in him too, but at least it's like substance behind what he's saying. Like he's actually like trying, and he's like he has a bit more confidence too. Like you can kind of see it. He still says dumb things, but and the fact that like none of them are pro-union at all. Like they wouldn't touch a picket line with a fucking 1,000-mile pole. Like if we're being fucking honest, Christie's still being Christie. Attacking Trump wherever he can. Ron DeSantis, it's uninteresting. Nikki Haley might get a boost. Like she's still doing what she needs to do. Like that line, that she delivered to Vivek when asked about his China dealings. Oh, you mean the company that you just had leave China right before your presidential campaign, or whatever she said? Like. It just perfectly timed. Like she did her research. Yeah, and I'm certain, like everybody on this stage can see through Vivek. He's so transparent, so slimy, so weaselly. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get some vodka. I know I'm sick, but I don't give a shit.
On substance was the best of the night in directly answering a question from the moderators. He's absolutely right. The strike is about pushing EV, subsidizing EV vehicles. He only left out it's also about inflation, which is also caused by Biden policies, spending and printing money. But I do want to disagree with Jason on something just stylistically really quickly. I thought is as I predicted. They were going to go after Vivek, right? They're going, and it wasn't just Tim Scott. You could hear Nikki Haley jump in, Ron DeSantis jump in, Mike Pence jumped in.
Yeah.
Everybody was ready to come after Vivek, and Vivek obviously got advice to come in being a little more collegial tonight. He's been trying to strike that tone. I thought Tim Scott, Jason, was good with his initial question. It's very valid and it's strong, but then he undercuts himself by continuing to interrupt Vivek. He just I couldn't hear anything Vivek was saying because Tim Scott kept saying, I'm just asking the question. Well, he kept going. Land your punch and then trust that the other guy is going to have trouble with it. I just think stylistically what he ends up doing is undercutting himself because I couldn't hear anything. And then they all jumped in. DeSantis was in there.
Agree with
Everybody
you.
was talking.
Totally agree with you, Will, because then nobody can hear what's going on. Dana Perino was actually foreshadowed.
We're out of time, guys. We'll be back in the next commercial break. Back to the moderators.
Welcome back to the Reagan Library for the second Republican presidential debate. I do want to just remind everyone, there's 1 minute for questions, 3 seconds for a follow-up, and the more you mention each other, that means the fewer questions you're going to get. Okay, so we want to talk about crime. This has been a horrendous problem in our country. The Fox News and others have been covering it. Governor Christie, crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night, looters took over the streets of Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use U.S. attorneys to prosecute crimes local prosecutors won't. But they are stretched as well, and they could not handle all of the lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging. Progressive prosecutors were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Well, look, Dana, I'm the only one on this stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country. at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back under control. The fact is, they will be stretched. There's no doubt about that, but that's what they take the job for, because they love the idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities, but we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
Oh God, that's so bad. Oh, that is the cringiest thing I have ever fucking heard.
I mean, sorry, as president, you would not have the ability
Oh
to do that.
no.
How do you think about dealing with the root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals that just get out and come back and commit another crime?
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful as a country if people aren't even safe to live in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco.
I
Just being in
cannot
Southern
believe that just
California
happened.
over the last couple of days, my wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street, and that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago. In Florida, we back the blue. We support the men and women of law enforcement. They are keeping us safe. We have a 50-year low crime rate.
Calculus and
yet,
Donald
when
Duck
I had
Christie,
2
no!
prosecutors in Florida, I removed them from their post, and the people
That's
of Florida are
so
safer as a result of it.
cringe.
As president, I will use the Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors. We're not going to let them get away with it anymore. We want to reverse this country's decline. We need to choose law and order over rioting and disorder.
Okay. Oh my God, the forced half smile. Goddamn, don't do that. Run.
Retirements are up.
Meatball run. Don't do that.
Tank. Morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge to support law enforcement. Now, pledges are a nice idea, but what's your actual plan to get more police on our streets?
Well, and I actually did it in South Carolina, too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words.
I can't believe it.
It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a lot of
Yeah,
stolen
get
guns
them
on the
pissed,
street.
pissed,
Well, these
yeah.
law enforcement officers, they arrest these people, and then they go and they're let out the very next day. So law enforcement feels like no one has their back. We have to start prosecuting according to the law.
Yeah, you're
We have
right,
to make sure
Drew.
we have the backs of law enforcement.
It's all the same
and we
shit.
have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to
The
China, because I
moderators
don't think
have
we spent enough time on
so
that.
much patience
Right
for this.
now, we have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China, too. You have a company,
Oh.
U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that. Yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking foreign policy later. Delia?
Yes, thank you, Stuart. We're going to stay in the topic of crime because it affects all of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun violence is. What is your specific plan to curb gun violence?
Well, first we need to know, understand is I think that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution
Not
to this
true.
is the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about that you showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So we know
Liberals
that
should
that's
not want to
what's working. What we have to
prosecute
do is
you.
get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws these people talked about, and like we've done in North Dakota, where we've got the goal and we're on the track to be the most military-friendly state in the nation. We've got the most military and the most support of what we're doing in terms of law enforcement, because the morale is down because we've been defunding the police, because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Can I answer the question on mass shootings?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about
I'm still
90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens.
I'm still reeling over that Donald Duck line.
Brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through ports of entry.
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks can drive through them. We have to use our own military to seal the Swiss cheese of a southern border. But we also have to be honest.
Okay.
There's a demand-side problem in this country, too, a mental health epidemic. I met family in Iowa, two parents, Kathy and Derek. They lost their son, Sebastian, 17 years old. He bought Percocet on Snapchat, and then he died. Why did he die? Because it was laced with fentanyl. That is closer to bioterrorism, not a drug overdose. That is poisoning. So it is our job to make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country.
Yeah, that's
not
what
with pumping pharmaceuticals,
Snapchat's what
but with
was leading
faith-based
to
approaches that restore purpose
getting some
and
perks.
meaning in the next generation of Americans. Many of them are getting it through social media. And this isn't a Republican point or a Democrat point. But if you're 16 years old or under, you should not be using an addictive social media product, period. This is something that we can both agree on, and we can revive both the mental health of this country while stopping the fentanyl epidemic that will kill more people this year than who died on 9/11. And I refuse to be a passive bystander sitting in the White House like the hollowed out husk of a current president we have. We will step up and address this problem to stand for Americans and our children.
Why are you encouraging TikTok? Quit encouraging TikTok.
That is why, everything he said I agree with. That is why, as Commander-in-Chief, I'm going to use the U.S. military to go after the Mexican drug cartels. They are killing our people. And the stories that I've seen in Florida, we had an infant, 18 months, parents rented an Airbnb. And apparently the people that had rented it before were using drugs. The infant was crawling, the toddler was crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died. Are we just going to sit here and let this happen, this carnage happen in our country? I am not going to do that. So I guarantee you on day one, this border is going to be a day one issue for me as president.
How about we address
declare it a national emergency? Yes, we'll build
the issues that lead people to abuse drugs in the first place.
Those Mexican drug cartels are going to be treated like the foreign terrorist organizations that they are.
President Pence. All right, Vice President Pence.
Like people want to do drugs.
To a different issue. Hold on, sir. Vice President
It's never going to end.
Just last month, Vice President Pence, you said if elected, you would repeal all Obamacare mandates. However, you also made that same promise in 2016. And at that time, Trump-Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years, and you did not deliver.
Thank Christ for John McCain for keeping them in place.
More popular than ever. Why should Americans trust you, if you become president, to fix that, or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first let me speak to the mass shootings issue, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dana. Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as a grandfather of three beautiful little girls, I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass shooting.
That doesn't fucking solve shit, dude.
Years.
Bro, most mass shooters kill themselves anyway. You think they give a fuck? You think that's going to deter them? God, what a fucking idiot.
Florida. That's not justice. We have to mete out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars. You're going to meet justice in this system.
But does that mean Obama?
You think, oh my God, he's so out of touch.
Well, thank you for reiterating the question, because I'd love to answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States, it's my intention to make the federal government smaller by returning to the states those resources and programs that are rightfully theirs under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. That means all Obamacare funding, all housing funding, all HHS funding, all of it goes back to the states. We'll shut down the Federal Department of Education. Will allow states to innovate. We're going to revive federalism in America, and states are going to help bring.
The only distinction he's making himself from Trump is that he wouldn't be a totalitarian.
So that we can get as many questions in as possible. This question for Governor DeSantis. Over 26 million Americans
Shut up, Tim.
have insurance coverage. Governor DeSantis, 2.5 million of them are in your state. That's worse than the national average. Can Americans trust you on this?
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates are going through the roof. People that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take things out of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line because the total goes up so quickly. So this is very real, and people are hurting out there. So we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all Biden's rules and regulations. I'm going to throw them in the trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant in this country. That will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with healthcare is recognize our healthcare is
literally none of these people
big pharma, big insurance, and
are bringing up
and we need
raising wages
and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
Governor, why is your record in Florida on insurance worse than the national average?
Our state's a dynamic state. We've got a lot of folks that come. Of course, we've had a population boom. We also don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. You know, we're basically say this is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs.
It's no wonder your state's kind of on the decline
and
economically.
You got to do that, and so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment rate is the lowest amongst any big state. We have the highest GDP growth amongst any big state, and even CNBC.
Yeah, it's because most people in your state have to work 2 jobs to survive. You fucking jackass.
On the topic of healthcare, Governor Haley, healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy for American families.
They don't talk about raising wages. They don't talk about raising taxes on corporate CEOs.
Americans who get sick from financial ruin.
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world? We have an issue. My mom was in the hospital, and when she was in the hospital, they tried to bring her a couple of Tylenol, and she said, I don't need it. And they said, honey, go ahead and take it because you're paying for it anyway. Why is it that when we got the bill, the insurance company and the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it? When I am president, we will break all of it, from the insurance company to the hospitals to the doctor's offices to the PBMs to the pharmaceutical companies. We will make it all transparent, because when you do that,
Medicare for all.
What the problem is. Second thing is you've got to deal with tort law. The doctors don't give
Medicare
you
for all.
they want to. It's because of the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we need to bring competition back to healthcare. Get rid of certificate.
Fuck you.
And make sure
Medicare for all.
We have to put the patient in the driver's seat. They've been in the back seat for way too long. And once we give the patient the ability to decide their health care, deciding which plan they want.
Competition is what made this mess anyway, in the first place.
Every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the American people.
Medicare for all.
Do you have a better way in 30 seconds?
Well, yes,
we're not talking about the real problem ever. We talk about why do we have the most expensive health care in the world? It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everybody more productive. All of you that are watching have been to a doctor's office when the doctor's got his back to you and their hands on a keyboard. The only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive, they saw less patients per day, is U.S. healthcare because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology. It wasn't about improving healthcare. It was about picking winners and losers. Every time the federal government's involved, whether it's higher education, healthcare, or now the auto industry, things get more expensive and less competitive.
That was a great transition because we are going to move on. The future of education in America. What's the government's role in finding a way forward?
Yeah, no, I mean...
Rolls on from Simi Valley.
An informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents?
I'm glad Reagan's dead.
Of the world?
Not soon enough. Yeah, no, I already can't wait for this to be over.
So, welcome back. I got a little birdie in my ear told me that Dana Perino, maybe we saw a little bit of a different tone in this second portion because she did a little scolding of the candidates about let's pay attention to the dinger.
Yeah, let's actually like stay on topic, for crying out loud. You know, Doug Burgum actually is the most like sensible out of all these people, which isn't saying much, like, at all, because he's still very much a conservative, and therefore not worth voting for. Man, this music, gents. Yeah, I muted it for you. We'll go back to it in a second, but yeah, if you're here, make yourself known. We're on like a little commercial break-a-majig thingy right now. I think Nikki Haley will get a boost. Doug Burgum might hold on. But yeah, like, these people just don't have solutions. I don't know how much more I can reiterate like about this. I don't know how much more like how many times I have to repeat myself about like the intentions of everybody here. They don't care about improving material conditions for workers. They don't care about providing for families. I mean, I think it was Tim Scott that mentioned like, yeah, double the child tax credit. Yeah, that'd be fucking awesome. Like for real. If you have a kid, yeah, you should get a fucking tax break, like big time. Yeah. Much bigger than you already do, like that. And it is a failure on the part of, you know, I guess the Biden administration, but more so Congress. The fact that they are not, they're just letting this giant program fail, for daycare and you know, childcare in general. To the point where, like, they mentioned 70,000 child care centers are going to close soon. It's like, and it's so expensive to begin with. It's like, what, you literally have to make a choice between, do I work or do I take care of my child, stay home, you know? And that's how you lose income. That's how, you know, you miss bills, and it's a slippery slope. You are so much more closer to being homeless than you are being part of the fucking 1%. That's for goddamn sure. But yeah, no, frustrating. So I'm gonna play guitar about it, and you're gonna suffer for the next 30 seconds. All right, are they back? They probably are. No, they're not. But we're going to go back anyway because you don't want to hear that shit. All right.
Did Mike Pence negotiate the Remain in Mexico? I mean, it's kind of interesting how he tries to take credit for a lot of things. Everyone knows that if Mike Pence had been in charge, immigration policy, Trump immigration policy would not be the way, he would be a lot more lenient.
Well, he takes credit for things that work and nothing on anything else. All right, we're back. If the moderators are here.
And we are back live at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the Air Force One Pavilion for the second Republican debate. And let's get back to our questions. Governor Haley, American students, they are in academic trouble. They have lower scores in math and reading. There's chronic absenteeism. That's at record highs. And this has even been called education homicide.
What?
You say school choice is the answer,
What the hell?
but South Carolina, your home state, still has not enacted universal school choice, and even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until
nobody can afford it.
2027.
Nobody can
Parents
afford.
can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would
Private
you do
schooling.
right now?
Well, and school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all, is we have to acknowledge the fact that 67% of our 8th graders are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our 8th graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. We need to do reading remediation. We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need to make sure that we have school choice so that there's competition. We need to move all the programs from the federal government down to the states and let states decide what education looks like in their states. Right. And we need to start building things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back in our high schools and let's get our kids building the things that we know that we can make. When we start to focus on that and really bring in that parental involvement, that's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT and instead focus on financial literacy, on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of education,
that's
on the subject of education, a question.
That's all they care about. Education in order to get a job.
Are getting high marks on their report cards. But minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart,
all lives matter.
Before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school district in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency. It can be done when you give people choice. But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country. Randy Weingarten and her crew are absolutely strangling. They are taking the worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids. And when you have the President of the United States sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance that you could take the stranglehold away from the teachers union every day. They have an advocate inside the White House every day for the worst of their teachers, not for our students to be the best they can be. A President
You're literally blaming like the performance
I did it in New Jersey, and I will do it as President of the United States.
On whether or not teachers' unions advocate for better salaries.
Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said
what in the hell?
Slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it.
Wow.
But many are still hurt.
They're bringing up his slavery comments.
What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great black history scholars, so we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in our schools in a really big way, just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989.
That's not indoctrination.
Florida is showing how it's done.
American exceptionalism isn't indoctrination. No way.
Kids are benefiting.
Senator Scott, you oppose to these new standards. What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth.
We have not overcome slavery.
We faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge.
Because they kind of
do. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes.
The fuck are you talking about?
Tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was
what
Johnson's
heritage do
Great
Black
Society,
Americans have to look
where they
back on?
decided to put money where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail, and you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism.
Then stop arresting them for petty misdemeanor crimes or marijuana-related
Our
charges.
nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country.
Yeah, it is.
Never doubt who we are.
Yeah, it is.
We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And
Give me a break.
The city on the hill.
We're not the most racist country, but we're up there.
All right. I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Tim Scott really wants you to fucking vote for him.
Students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification.
That's a great point, Valiant Thor.
Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect
This
parental
entire
rights.
stage would have burned down
Do
already.
the same.
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. I met 2 young women early in this campaign.
Specifically on parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation here. The very people who say
Fucking
that this
gross.
increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not
Maybe it's because their parents don't fucking accept them for being trans.
Cruelty. I met 2 young women, Chloe and Katie, early in this campaign, who are in their 20s, now regret getting double mastectomies and a hysterectomy. One of them will never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen in this country is barbaric.
Anecdote
so I will
Andy.
ban genital mutilation or chemical castration under the age of 18, and parents have
It doesn't.
absolutely
It's illegal. It doesn't happen. It's not happening.
We are going to require states absolutely have to follow that through.
Governor Burgum
We
just to
stand
follow
for
up on
parental
this
rights.
because
Yes.
you in your state you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified, but you want to be president. Would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something, because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or health care or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is the student.
But you do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education. That needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape, and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like Boys Scouts, they can get credit.
Fucking like 10 people in North Dakota, though.
Is now at the top of the median SAT scores in the country right now.
Vice President Pence,
It's not going to work for.
the Department of Homeland Security warns that violence against LGBTQ+ people is on the rise and intensifying. According to a recent study, members of that community are 9 times more likely to be victims of violent hate crimes. As president, how would you protect this community from violent attacks?
That's a great fucking question.
As President of the United States, I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American from every background. And I want the American people to know that. But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked Doug Burgum. Because by way of full disclosure, Chris, you mentioned the president's situation. My wife isn't a member of the teachers union, but I got to admit, I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years. And, so full disclosure. Look, education is a state and local function. The state of Indiana had one of the very first school choice programs in the country. And when I was governor of the state of Indiana, we doubled it. And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear. When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents. I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy. That's crazy. We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and we're going to pass a federal ban
sure that's not even like remotely accurate.
Chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids.
It's not chemical. It's not surgical. It's physical. It's physical transitioning.
At the state level, with the ability to
chemical and
choose where
surgical
the kids
under
go to school,
18
whether
years
it's
old
public,
is
private, parochial,
illegal.
homeschool. You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values and focus on the basics faster than you could possibly imagine.
Next subject.
Oh my God, dude.
Can I just say one thing?
Shut
up, Vivek. Shut up.
Over everybody. Please. We lose time. China is investing heavily in their tech companies. $280 billion every year on semiconductor research and development. That is 1 CHIPS Act per year. Governor DeSantis, you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our society's developed. They have huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies. But this issue of China, I think, is really going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much.
Enforcing your terms of service is not cracking down on free speech.
We rely on them for a whole host of issues. We need to
reshore
and we need to decouple all those important industries. We need to get that back in the United States. They are our top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the Asia Pacific, but as you mentioned earlier, in our region. But ultimately, we've got to beat them on the economy. And so that's what we'll do as President of the United States.
Governor Christie, I wanted to follow up on this because 22% of American workers fear their jobs will be lost to a robot. And you said in the past that the free market is the way to go. Would you retrain workers who lose a job to artificial intelligence, and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers us is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have now and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana. You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and progress in this country. What we've done with it is to expand all kinds of new, even unthought of opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that. And we should have more training available both at the county college level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that. But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years, a technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, and a freedom and governmental innovator. And that's why America has to continue to stand strong in the world, pro-innovation, pro-progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government the hell off its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everybody's lives better.
Mr. Ramaswamy, TikTok is banned on government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government. Yet you joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded?
Jake Paul being fucking mentioned during
I have a radical idea for the Republican Party.
debate.
We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans where they are. So when I get into office, I've been very clear. Kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media. We're only going to ever get to declaring independence from China, which I favor, if we actually win. So while the Democrats are running rampant, reaching the next generation 3-1, there's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here, and so I know I have to earn your trust. What do you see? You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry.
Shut up.
Maybe a little ambitious.
Shut up. I'm already tired of you.
It seems at times. I'm here to tell you, no, I don't know it all. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age they are, advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people who disagree with me.
Okay.
That's what makes America great, because we're not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump. I have to jump in here. I'm sorry.
Ramaswamy was speaking.
There's one person on this.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say, because I can't believe
you've
got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails. They can.
You think that's stopping them from using TikTok though? Come on.
Knows exactly what they're doing.
This is very important for our party, and I'm going to say
you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all.
That's not what he's saying, though.
We're in business with the Chinese Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok in our kids' lives.
This is very important.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds.
I think, excuse me.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy following Reagan's 11th Commandment.
No, fucking call them out for being out of touch with young people, because they are. Meet young people where they are.
I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage. They disagree, but let's have a legitimate disagreement.
That's what I would say.
Stuart, can we get back to the question?
No, we cannot. Governor DeSantis,
Republicans will forever
we
be.
will have to cut your mic, and I don't want to do that.
They will forever deserve to lose.
Governor DeSantis, let me go to you. Experts say President Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe, cheated on arms control treaties with the U.S., and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if you want to prevent a war, you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine. The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russia's military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
It's in our interest to end this war, and that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have
It's not your call.
And we're going to make the Europeans do what they need to do. But they've sent money to pay bureaucrats pensions and salaries and funding small businesses halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even have control of our own territory. We have got to defend the American people before we
all over
even
the
worry
place.
about all these other things. And I watch these guys in Washington, D.C., and they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will defend this country's sovereignty.
But it's not a territorial dispute. It's never been a territorial dispute.
And 90% of the resources that we send over to Ukraine is guaranteed as a loan. It is not 90% of the money that we send over there is loan. Well, we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually in the form of a loan. It's not actually not being paid by Ukraine, it's paid by the NATO, our NATO allies.
So I think it's a good topic.
I think it's a really good topic too. I will say, let's debate the fact that our national vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer, we keep our troops at home, and we all understand Article 5 of NATO.
We have to level with the American people.
I thought you said something about waiting until your turn to talk, so hold on a
I'm
second. I'm going to finish my, I'll be happy to debate
ahead and
this.
I'll respond.
I'll look forward to this one right now. So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that if you want to keep American troops at home, attack on NATO territory would bring us and our troops in.
That's
By
exactly,
degrading the
yeah,
Russian
it's that
military,
simple.
We reduce,
It's that
if
simple.
not eliminate, an attack on
If I
NATO territory.
finish that exchange, we have to level with the American people. We have to level with the American people on this issue. The reality is just because Putin is Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
A win
that has
for
actually,
Russia is a
that
win
is not
for
true.
China.
We're driving
a win
Russia.
for Russia
Excuse
is a
me.
win for China.
Excuse me. And if you have
but
a chance,
I forgot you like China. That's why you're
you'll have your chance in just a moment. The hurling personal insults isn't helping. China is the real enemy, and we're driving Russia further into China's arms. We need a reasonable peace plan to end this. Especially
We're not doing it. Russia's doing that themselves.
Just last week,
Vivek,
was
if you
hailing
let
Nazi in
Putin
his own
have
ranks.
Ukraine, that's a green light to China to take Taiwan.
We need a
Peace
reasonable
comes
plan.
through strength.
We need a reasonable plan.
God damn it, it's the same thing last debate.
China's the real enemy.
Governor Christie, President Biden's first 2 years have brought China, Russia, and Iran closer together. Are we focused too much on Ukraine and not enough on this threat from the New World Order?
No, they're all connected, Stuart. They're all connected. The Chinese are paying for the Russian war in Ukraine.
No, they're
the
not.
Iranians are supplying more sophisticated
How?
weapons, and so are the North Koreans.
Are they
now as
actually,
well,
like,
with
funding the war
encouragement of the
directly?
Chinese. The naivete on this stage from some of these folks is extraordinary. Look, I understand people want to go and talk to Putin. Guess what? So did George W. Bush. So did Barack Obama. So did Donald Trump. And so did Joe Biden when he said a small invasion wouldn't be so bad. Every one of them has been wrong. And the fact of the matter is, we need to say right now that the Chinese-Russian alliance is something we have to fight against, and we are not going to solve it by going over and cuddling up to Vladimir Putin. Look, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was brilliant and a great leader. This is the person who is murdering people in his own country, and now not having enough blood, he's now going to Ukraine to murder innocent civilians and kidnap 20,000 children. And let me tell you, if you think that's where it's going to stop, if we give him any of Ukraine, next will be Poland. This is a guy who said, this is a guy in 1991 who said that was the darkest moment in world history when the Soviet Union fell. Listen, everybody, he wants to put the old band back together, and only America can stop it. And when I'm president, we will.
He's not exactly wrong.
I have a question I think you're going to really like.
Like
Or
Putin
at
does
least you
want,
have experience in it. and we need to talk about America's farmers because there is a foreign policy connection here. The U.S. and China are in this fierce economic competition. It's hurting American businesses, and there is blowback against American farmers because China then targets them in retaliation. How would you, as president, protect American farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in an economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price on anyone's head who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America. For
that was Iran's money.
If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then they're also helping Iran get to have more closer to nuclear weapon, which pushes all of the
No, that was Trump's doing by ripping up the Iran nuclear deal.
And then, of course, we're going to give Ukraine to Russia, and then we're going to give Taiwan to China, and think that's a foreign policy. That will make our nation less successful, make us more poor. And at the core of all that is energy policy, because China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest importer in the world, and we've had 4 cabinet members from the Biden administration there this summer, and none of them talked about U.S. energy. The first one to go to each of those countries was Kerry to talk about the folly of the climate policy, which is making the world less stable. It's empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need worried about. It's about the Biden climate policies that are actually the existential threat to America's future.
Thank you.
Can I speak about
Governor Haley, Mexico's president called.
Doug Burgum really just doesn't address anybody else on that stage. He kind of has to if he wants any modicum of a chance.
Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner and border security. You say you will send special operations to attack the cartels in Mexico. So, this means boots on the ground, drone strikes?
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to do is understand that Mexico's not being a good partner if we lost 75,000 Americans last year. Mexico's not being a good partner if they're letting the cartels get away with what they're getting away with. What we will do is we will make sure that we send in our special operations, and we will take out the cartels, we'll take out their operations, we'll take out anything that's doing it. But we're going to go after China, because China is the one sending the fentanyl in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl. And then we'll do the special operations, and we'll get it from both sides. This is where President Trump went wrong. He focused on trade with China. He didn't focus on the fact that they were buying up our farmland. He didn't focus on the fact that they were killing Americans. He didn't focus on the fact that they were stealing $600 billion in intellectual property. He didn't focus on the fact that they put a spy base off our shores in Cuba. They didn't focus enough on the fact that all of our law enforcement drones in America are Chinese, and we've got all these little surveillance cells.
Right.
We need to start focusing on what keeps Americans safe. That hasn't happened in a long time. As your president, I will make sure every American is safe, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
All right. I want to get to Senator Scott. You're all auditioning for the job as President of the United States. You want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debates in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush was asked about al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
One of the things I've had the good fortune of doing is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl. I've written the legislation, passed it through the Banking Committee and the Senate that would freeze the assets and sanction the accounts of the Mexican cartels. There are weapons that we have within the arsenal that I was able to get past 23-0 in the polarizing Senate as it is. I've also understood without question the fact that if you look at the details before 9/11, there was information and intelligence that was available that suggested an attack was coming. Having the right intelligence partners with us is key to making sure that we prevent the next 9/11 from ever happening. Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting the job done.
30 seconds to you, Mr. Pence.
Well, I think you asked a question about executive experience. I think it's vitally important. And I stand before you today as a candidate for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. And you hear the fire on the stage tonight. You hear the fire in all of our voices. And it's because Joe Biden has weakened this country.
The fire you hear is actually all of your pants.
This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and a commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies, supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward.
Understood.
Because, frankly, our party does face a time for choosing, as I said at the top of this debate, whether we're going to stand on the foundation of that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan poured, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored to conservative principles. I'm the most experienced, most qualified, and most consistent conservative in this field, and I'm ready to lead America at home and abroad on day one.
Time for choosing to go to a break. Ilya.
We need to go to a commercial break. Reagan built a coalition that lasted decades. Can any of these candidates do the same? We'll take that up when the debate continues.
I'm sure the Univision audience is just fucking baffled at how insane these people on stage are. Like, holy shit. Oh,
it's an interesting set of questions and answers. It appears everyone's sleeping with teachers. At least that's what Mike Pence had to say.
Gross.
The soundbite that's going to get clipped there is Nikki
Haley
saying every time
let me
I
get
hear
some
you,
water.
I get a
Turn on my
little bit
air conditioning.
dumber in the exchange with Vivek, and then he's invoking the 11th commandment again. Interesting stuff on Ukraine. I just thought, and I'll go to you real quick, Jason, like that last answer from Tim Scott on the banking committee, my eyes just sort of glaze over and I go, that's not going to do it. You know, I mean, there's just some things there where you're looking for more. But overall, reactions from all three of you. Jason, starting with you.
Well, I think on the Russia question, everybody kind of missed it. The idea, they're there in Ronald Reagan Library. Ronald Reagan bankrupted the Soviet Union, and we have the ability to be energy independent. You want to invoke pain on Russia, you are energy independent. They are reliant upon high energy prices to fuel their war in Ukraine, and nobody even mentioned it. And yet I thought that was a huge missed opportunity.
I actually think, Will, that's a great point. I haven't heard Joe Biden's name mentioned very often. Pence there did at the end, kind of pivoted back to it, but you know, it hasn't been a lot of as much indictment of him as I thought it would be.
You know, a couple of moments that stood out to me, Pete, you're right. I'm surprised they're not talking more about Joe Biden. Ron DeSantis hit his sweet spot in that section of the debate. They asked him about education. He firmly called out the hoax on the policies, on his education policies.
Yep.
And that's his sweet spot, anti-wokeism. But the truth is, that stuff should and is largely handled at the state government level. This is a debate for President of the United States. And for me, I think we could have an entire 2-hour debate.
Just joining. We're watching a train wreck
and immigration.
In real time.
The power of the presidency. And those are issues that are existential to the United States, and whether or not we protect America first, and whether or not it's our interest to invest in this war in Ukraine, and what's happening in our southern border.
You really didn't miss much at all, Drew.
I think trans issues are very. I talk about them. We talk about them all the time. Culture is very
did you miss
important.
the part where
when it comes to the president, his
fucking
job is
Chris
to
Christie
deal with issues like Ukraine
called Donald Trump
and
Donald Duck?
Yeah, Rachel, take it anywhere you want. It's been interesting too because the Univision moderator's been throwing in some sort of liberal.
I'm still stuck on that Donald Duck line.
Throw the whole thing off. Creates a different dynamic too.
Yeah, you know, Pete, sometimes we do share a brain. I was going to say that as well.
Yeah, make sure you guys like the stream, subscribe if you're not subscribed.
Univision host,
say hi.
With what I think Ron DeSantis rightfully
Yeah.
called a hoax. I think that was a memorable moment for sure.
What's a hoax?
Also, awkward moment. The hot for teacher thing did not work for me. I didn't want to think about it. And then I think that Will is right. Ukraine is so important, and
yeah, you didn't miss much.
And this idea about our energy policy, how that's affecting the war. But you saw everybody line up on the side of the neocon side, the pro-war side. The only one on the other side was Vivek, and then you see Ron DeSantis Switzerland in the middle.
I mean, absolutely, some of them are pro-war, but like,
seems to have the right
you can't be on the side of Russia, period, because that's
forever known as the hot for teacher bloc.
Perpetuating, they're perpetuating the war. Yeah, no, they mostly talked about
Welcome back to the Republican
Russia and foreign policy while you were gone, Drew.
We've got a lot more issues to cover and a lot more questions to go. So let's dive right back in. We're here in California, where gas is nearing $6 a gallon.
Yeah.
Oil is close to $100 a barrel again.
Gas is insane right now. Absolutely nuts. ARCO is like $5.60 something.
How would you bring down prices without immediate drilling?
Well, look, I think that we do have to run through the courts and get through that administrative state to make sure we're using the natural resources here at home. But here's the other thing that we can do that's easy.
Forever, Mr. Ramaswamy.
And it addresses the national debt as well as brings down prices. Put people back to work. We are using taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home than to go to work. That is wrong. That contributes to our supply chain crisis. It contributes to inflation. That's the easiest way to unlock this economy. And here's the other thing. We have to put the Federal Reserve back in its place. This is an agency that has gone rogue. So in January 2026, when I have the opportunity as their next commander-in-chief, we will have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who places priority on dollar stability, and then most importantly, send packing 75% of the administrative state, reduce the federal employee headcount by 75%, rescind 50% of unconstitutional federal regulations that are shackling businesses, both large and small. I've offered a very clear, practical plan to do it. That's how we unleash the economy. That's how we revive the integrity of a three-branch constitutional republic rather than this technocracy.
He's just going on about, what is he fucking talking about?
One of the signature accomplishments of our
Can I
administration
play Red Dead
years.
Redemption 2 now, please?
We achieved energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy for the first time in 75 years. But on day one, Joe Biden declared a war on energy, which was no surprise because when Joe Biden ran for president, he said he was going to end fossil fuels. And they've been working overtime to do that ever since.
Which is
fine,
because it's literally destroying the planet.
We're going to open up federal lands. We're going to unleash American energy. We're going to have an all-of-the-above energy strategy. And I have a plan that actually would not only reclaim energy independence, but in 2006, America lost our position as the leading energy producer on Earth. I believe in the next 10 years, with the right policies and experienced leadership in the White House, we can reclaim our role as the leading energy producer on Earth, and that'll grow the American economy for generations to come.
I suppose it should be full screen.
The only person who's leading an energy state, could I answer the energy question?
No, Governor Haley.
No.
The first thing I'll say is what I saw at the United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president.
I don't think we did, Drew, because like
independence. Ron DeSantis is against
what you're watching right now is like
you did it. He always talks
it's
about
delayed by like a
on
minute
day one.
almost.
You better watch out because what happens on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't have to take.
Those are good things.
You mentioned you have the right to respond. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing, and we are going to lower your gas prices. We are going to get that job done because it's important for our national security, it's important for jobs, and that's one of the best ways to drive down inflation.
Governor DeSantis, Governor DeSantis,
So listen, the only answer to that, because this is
Governor
ridiculous.
DeSantis, this question is for
Florida,
you.
Our voters enacted a constitutional
You
amendment
banned it before
that
they
doesn't
voted.
allow. No, it's not true.
You banned it before they voted,
Nikki,
and not only that, fracking wasn't. They didn't
she's
vote on
just totally
fracking.
wrong. They voted it
Check
in.
it.
That's
Check
what we
it.
did. Onshore, we do it in Florida. We don't have as much as maybe West Texas, but we do it. But that was a constitutional. So that's just wrong. And let's just get real here. My plan will get the job done. We are going to be energy dominant, and that's what's going to happen.
And the voters didn't even vote on fracking, and you banned
We are
fracking.
moving on with this question for Governor DeSantis. Governor, excuse me, we cannot talk over each other. We must respect each other's time. My apologies for that.
I'm ready, Stuart.
Governor DeSantis, this is your question. The Biden administration is hell-bent on student loan forgiveness, but you say colleges should be on the hook when graduates.
Imagine defending fracking and
How
drilling.
does that address the cost of college? How does that the cost of college itself?
Because the colleges are going to have to make a decision. Do we expand the gender studies department, knowing some of those graduates may not have great learning opportunities? No. They're going to really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11, because I was just at the 9/11 memorial with the families. My wife and I were very
9/11.
touching to be there, and it affected my life because I ended up joining the military as a result of that. I had been a blue-collar kid, minimum wage in Dunedin, Florida. I ended up getting through Yale and Harvard Law School and somehow came out more conservative than when I went in, and that is not easy to do. Had a lot of opportunities to make money, but I wanted to serve, and I'll never forget coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American, and I think being able to serve, and I'll be the first president elected since 1988 who's actually served overseas in a war, I think that's going to help me as commander-in-chief to know how you see these issues and understand that there are real lives at stake for people that wear the uniform.
And we know that Governor Haley's husband is serving right now as well, and we thank him for that. Senator Scott, the national debt has nearly doubled in your time in office. The approval rate for Congress is at a mere 19%. If this were a business, you'd probably all be fired in Washington, but you're here tonight looking for promotion. In 2013, Governor Haley hired you for the Senate. I'd like you to tell her why you should be promoted to CEO of the nation instead of her.
Certainly. One of the things I'd say is if you look at our national debt of $33 trillion, I would love to have an opportunity to have this country pass a balanced budget amendment. That would constrain the spending in Washington in the same fashion that it does in every state in our nation, number one. Number two, if you want to actually reduce our national debt, you have to grow our economy. In order to grow our economy, you need to create about 10 million jobs to grow our economy at 5%.
Isn't it great, like how capitalism literally requires endless growth on finite resources?
Million jobs.
It's literally just a fucking Jenga tower.
Resources. America is we're the richest country if you combine coal, gas, and oil. Why not unleash all of our resources? Number two, we've lost 100,000 factories. 100,000 factories in the last 25 years. If we continued on my Made in America plan, we could bring jobs back to America in a similar fashion that we did when I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We actually lowered the corporate tax from 35% to 21%, reshored or repatriated $1.7 trillion. We brought the unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians to the lowest level in the history of the country, and a 70-year low for women.
Governor Haley, would you think you would deserve the promotion over him?
Look, I appreciate Tim. We've known each other a long time, but he's been there 12 years and he hasn't done any of that. He hasn't. They've only given 4 budgets on time in 40 years. He was part of that. He increased the national debt. He voted for the spending.
You voted
he has made sure that the borders are open and they haven't done anything. Look at everything that's happened. 12 years. Where have you been? Where have you been, Tim?
I voted on most of those things.
We've waited and nothing has happened.
Here's what you've done.
Here's the thing that I just find interesting.
Ron, let me finish
All
it
these
first.
guys have said
Here's the
things,
fact.
and I appreciate a lot of the things they're saying.
Nikki
I'm
Haley.
the only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida. And that's what it's all about. You can always talk, but when it gets hot in there, when they're shooting arrows at you, are you going to stand up for parents' rights, to keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those things? And in the state of Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. We have won the big fights. We have turned our state into a Republican state. People respond to leadership. I've done it while others have talked about it.
CEO, we actually have a CEO in the White House.
Exhausting.
I think we need, if I may just briefly interject here, we need a zero-based budgeting. That's the way businesses are actually run. Start with zero as the baseline for the budget, and then see what's actually necessary. There isn't a blue state or a red state in this union that does it. The federal government doesn't do it, but successful companies, including the ones that I've built as a CEO, will do it. And I think we need a CEO in the White House to get that done.
Governor Burgum runs a state that way. Yes,
tech
go
questions,
ahead.
you didn't ask the only guy that's been in tech. You have energy questions, you don't ask anything. But I'm just going to say right now, when you say nobody else has done it, the energy plans that have all been announced in the last month by these other folks on stage, we're already doing it in North Dakota. The border plans they're already talking about, we've got troops down at the border flying helicopter missions from North Dakota, from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations from inflicting the invasion and the mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already doing it. And it's not saying when nobody else done the big fights, North Dakota was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. WOTUS, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. To say that nobody's fighting the big fights, just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security, I've been talking about it since day one, and now finally good, we're having the conversation about it, but we've got the answer in North Dakota.
Governor Burgum, let's talk big government. This question's for you. Big government keeps getting bigger. 1/5 of all new jobs this year have been created by the government. Governor Burgum, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it has been a century since any president has done that. Why would you be any different?
Well, because we've done it in North Dakota. When I took office, we shrunk the state budget general fund by 27% in the first 4 months I was office, and all the trains still running on time. Why? Because you had a business leader that was actually there. Inside of every government job, there's 10 or 20% of mind-numbing.
That's exactly what I said during the first debate.
Don't want to do.
Like let's see what Eyebrows has to say.
That would free up right there 20% of 2 million civilian employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs open. They'd have plenty to do, and they could be
He's easily the least insufferable person on stage, that's for sure.
To do it if you have somebody that understands.
I think he might get a bump in this debate. Like he holds his own.
Everything we had to
but
do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right, Governor DeSantis. I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states. Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona. That is a must-win state. Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that.
That is 100% why. Are you
he's
kidding
missing
me?
in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that.
What happened to the red wave? Like, look at the exit polls. One of the biggest reasons why the Republicans got schlocked in the midterms was because of reproduction rights.
For a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a quote where it says, "Every single person has purpose and worth." We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and that is wrong.
It's a fantasy, because it's not fucking real. It's not happening. It's a fake issue.
Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey. Dana.
That's the exact same answer as Ron
Because they don't
DeSantis.
have leaders in those states who are leading the fight the way it should be led. And
Oh,
in fact,
God, dude.
I was a governor here of the only blue state that's represented up here. This is where the fight is really tough for Republicans, and those are the states that we're going to have to try to win if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did was 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I
Like
kept
what?
saying no,
3%
because I
of
believe
Planned
in life,
Parenthood
but I also believe in
functions
states' rights. And I think
has
we
to do with
fought hard
abortion.
against Roe
That's it,
versus Wade
3%.
For decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk
A lot
to
of this
people and make them
actually,
understand
like,
that if you're pro-life,
neonatal
you
care
have to be pro-life for the
and
entire life. Not just the 9 months in the
STD
womb.
testing
and, we
and
talked a
all
lot about
kinds of
fentanyl
shit.
Tonight, and we haven't spoken one moment about treatment. But we need to make sure that for the drug-addicted 16-year-old on the floor of the county lockup, her life is precious too. And we need to be providing treatment to cure this as a disease that it is. If you're pro-life, you got to be pro-life for the entire life. We start talking like that, they're going to do what I did in the blue state, which was get reelected with 61% of the vote and won 70% of independents.
He's not wrong.
And 51%
Like,
of Latinos.
yeah, if you're gonna
because
call
I
yourself
told them
pro-life,
the truth from my heart.
you're gonna care about like their
The
entire
latest
life.
Univision poll found that 73% of Latino voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
Say what?
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country.
Okay.
And I'm incredibly proud of that tax cut and tax reform bill. I worked on Capitol Hill to help get that bill passed into law, the largest tax cut in American history.
God.
We saw literally the lowest unemployment ever recorded for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded
He
for
wants to
African
be
Americans,
Reagan
50-year low
so
for
bad.
women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm. And it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans, and for every American. So help me God.
Senator Scott, reaction?
Yes.
Oh,
There's no doubt that if you lead by example, it's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10% gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like.
He didn't want
10
to let
cents
this
on
go.
Gallon in South Carolina.
He's finally getting his
as
chance.
the
He
UN
didn't forget. He's
ambassador.
finally getting his chance to
You
go after.
literally
Bring it,
put
Tim.
$50,000 on curtains and a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want
and
to
see
know
it for
what that
yourself.
10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will
Here's
pass
what you
it
have to
if
do.
you will
All you
give
have
us
to do.
three.
All you
excuse
have
me,
to do is go
if you will
watch
give-
Nikki Haley on YouTube.
Yes.
If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas
So you
tax,
said
which
yes,
is why it didn't
you would
happen.
pass. Exactly, Ron.
Secondly, on the 50 million.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtains, do your
Yes.
homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you
and
send them
it's-
back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get it
You
done.
hung them on your curtains.
I swear to God.
Even showed up at
What
the
are we
residence.
even arguing about?
Scrapping.
here's
You
a-
are scrapping.
I'm not
Excuse
scrapping.
me. You know I fought
Here's a fact.
taxes.
Here's a fact, though.
I cut taxes. I loaded up our
You wanted a gas tax increase, and then you wanted
Ladies and gentlemen,
At the end
we
of the
do not
day-
intend to go ahead like this. In fact, we're about to take a commercial break. We'll have more of the second Republican debate live from the Reagan Presidential Library in just a few moments.
Gosh, golly, I can't even. Like, wow.
All right, well, it's confirmed. I don't think Tim Scott and Nikki Haley like each other. I didn't. They were pitted against each other a little bit at the beginning of this, and the fight continued. I'm hearing a little bit of audio in my background. I don't know if the audience is hearing that as well, but what you're hearing is some of the back and forth. I want to go around the horn here as we're getting to the end of this debate. I'm guessing we'll come out almost just to final statements. DeSantis saying I had big fights and big wins was, got a nice reaction from the crowd. I think was a good comeback considering how prominent his fights have been. One other note before we go around the horn is the audience. I've talked to some people that have been in the hallway. It's more of a think tank sort of Reagan Institute type audience. It's been a little muted in there, which is different than the energy you felt in other debates also. So let's go around the horn. Will, Rachel, Jason, go.
I agree. I think that moment was huge for DeSantis. I think DeSantis has rebounded well. I thought he was a little quiet and missing in the first 45 minutes. And in the second 45 minutes, I think he's been strong. And I think he has a leg to stand on, a foundation to say, I've fought big wins, I've taken the arrows, and I've had the big fights.
All right, well, we got like 7 minutes left of the debate, and then
because it was true.
I can fuck off and
I
play
think,
Red Dead 2.
Chris Christie, I'm going to have Fox News alert. I liked him for the first time ever in any of the
Super
debates.
insufferable like the last debate. I don't know how or why these people
think. I did not like the question from Univision
they can win
on building bridges to Hispanics. Hispanics are absolutely, do not need bridges built to them. Talk to them like any other American about the economy, about energy, about crime, about education. I thought that was ironically a condescending question out of a Hispanic.
The 5 or 6 of you watch, and what do you think?
Absolutely. A lot of people will be. Go ahead, Jason. Keep going.
What are your
I was going to
thoughts?
say I totally agree with Rachel on that point, and Will, I think you made a great point as well. I think this theme that's emerging for me is that the people at home, when they're evaluating this, they want to be more like Florida. I think, again, Governor Berger, says some good things, but I don't think it's going to make the kind of leap that he wants it to. I think it was sadly, and I'm good friends with him. I like him. I respect him. I have nothing but good things to say him, but I don't think that Vice President Pence is going anywhere at this point.
Sean, we got Sean Hannity here, right here, guys. I'm going to get his instant analysis. Sean, we got about 30 seconds before we go back. What's your take so far?
My take so far is a little noisy. However, there's a lot at stake for all these guys.
Who cares what Sean Hannity thinks?
I like debates. I think a few of those people on the stage don't belong there.
You would sharpen it up.
I think it'd be sharpened up. I think the criteria should be a little more stringent. And I think as that happens, it'll be more of a conversation, and I think people get a little more deeply into the issue. So that was my take.
No doubt. All right, we'll see you on the
Pete Hegseth, right there on Fox Nation.
I mean, when Sean Hannity sticks his head right over your shoulder, you don't really know what to do. I think he's right, though. With such a big crowd up there, it's been hard to hear at times. It's been hard to understand the exchanges. Everybody's been wanting to get in. The moderators have been trying to jump in. Another note I have right here on my pad is Pence talks so slow. I mean, every time he talks, I'm like, yo, we just need to speed this up.
Yeah, Pence does talk slow.
I don't know. They see the candidates moving back toward the
Apologies
podium.
for the lack
in
fucking
we'll go to it shortly. Quick note for those
dialogue from my end. Like, I don't really care about this as much tonight. I'm sick. My position remains the same. All these people are clowns. Some of them less insufferable than the others. None of them are going to become president. Tim Scott's doing better than last time. He's actually making himself a bit more present. Mike Pence is half asleep. He's not going to go very far after this one. I think he's doing the worst. Vivek is just as annoying, just as wrong and fucking evil. Chris Christie's doing all right. DeSantis, he's doing all right. I think Burgum and Haley are like probably the winners tonight.
Wins the nomination. None of you have indicated that you're dropping out. So, which one of you on stage tonight should be voted off the island?
Wow.
Please use use your marker to write your choice on the notepad in front of you. 15 seconds starting now. Of the people on the stage,
Wow,
who should be-
they're literally turning them. They're turning each other against one another.
That's disrespectful to my fellow competitors.
Nobody wants to participate.
Let's do some questions. Let's talk about the future of the country.
I want to be clear.
Let me ask you this.
If I may.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Then if you won't answer to that question, let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
Good on them for
What is
not
your
wanting to participate in
mathematical
that.
path,
Yes.
Governor DeSantis, in order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race?
So polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents.
Right.
And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a mulligan on the 2024 election. Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something. Governor Christie, I believe, excuse me, Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something on the card. Who was it?
No, but I'll certainly tell you.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now.
Yeah.
And the reason I vote him off the island,
but any of the people on the stage,
you know what?
off the-
Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have respect for every man and woman on this stage because they've done it. Vivek, put your hand down for a second, would you? I still got time, dude. So chill out. Here, look,
Like you're on thin ice, buddy.
He's not
Like,
only divided our party.
my respect is slipping.
He's divided families all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation anymore if they disagree with Donald Trump. He needs to be voted off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
Can we get Vivek 15 seconds? Vivek.
Yeah, no.
15 seconds,
I
Vivek.
appreciate sense of humor. Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president, but the America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of this country. And the question is, who's going to unite this country and take the America First agenda to the next level? When we rallied behind the cry to make America great again, we did not just hunger for a single man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence.
Unless you're part of the Trump cult.
I will respect Donald Trump and his legacy because it's the right thing to do. But we will unite this country to take the America First agenda to the next level, and that will take a different generation to do it.
That does it. I repeat, that does it for the second Republican primary debate.
That's
live from the.
That's literally it. Like you don't get a final word from everybody else.
Candidates, we've loved having you here.
I mean, it is late. It is past the hour.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good night.
Oh wow! I'm still not over that Donald Duck line. Like wowee. All right, how cordial is everybody going to be here? Looks like everybody's being pretty cordial, I guess.
Well, there you're watching them go off the stage right
Handshakes
now.
for everybody. Make sure everybody shakes each
Interesting
other's
exchanges
hand.
after
Yeah.
a 2-hour debate like that on stage, taking
Simi
each other
Valley.
on.
Where is
Vivek
Simi
shaking
Valley?
hands. Everybody was going after Vivek. So we're going to get everyone's instant
Cannibalism.
analysis here from the entire
I'm gonna need context for that, Drew.
I just want to set the expectations for viewers and our panelists as well. We've got about 15 to 20 minutes here.
God damn it. Fuck you. Fuck off. Fuck off. Damn it. Whatever. Where is Simi Valley? Wow, this computer's hella slow. I'm sorry. Ventura? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, alright. So, just north of Los Angeles. Okay. Yeah, no, that was pretty bad. Yeah, I mean, I expected it to be, but I put myself through this shit regardless, like, I wasn't expecting it to be good. So, like, all right. Yeah, that was terrible. I would say, I think overall, Nikki Haley's probably the winner. With insufferable debate as expected. My opinion on worst to best, even though they were all bad. I think Mike Pence was the worst. Couldn't stand him. I think Vivek. Be sixth. Fifth would be Hunger for the People in Trump. I see. Okay. Tim Scott didn't do too bad, but like, I think, yeah, Ron DeSantis didn't do very good. I think he'll be fifth. That Donald Duck line, I don't know. I don't know if that helps or hurts him because it was so cringe. But Chris Christie showed a lot of passion, and so did Tim Scott. But Tim Scott showed more desperation. So I'm kind of flipping between the two. I guess I'll put Chris Christie at fourth, Tim Scott third, Doug Burgum at second. How the fuck do you spell these people's fucking names? Oh, U-M. And then Neocon Nikki, I think, rounds it out. All right, well, thanks, y'all, for tuning in. I'm not sure when the next debate is, but I hear that, excuse me. Damn it. I'm so sorry. I hear that Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis are having a debate in November. Like, late November. Apparently, like, the governor of California is going to be debating Ron DeSantis on Fox News. And I think Newsom's going to crush the shit out of DeSantis. If you've actually seen, like, interviews that Newsom has done, I think he'd just be brilliant. I think he'd wipe the floor with him. Like, I have a lot of issues with Newsom. He's far from, like, my preferred candidate. I mean, he's not running for president or anything, so I have no idea what this is for. Maybe it's just some sort of exhibition debate or whatever. So, no idea. But I'm definitely going to be tuning into that for sure. I hate the fact that I'm giving money to Fox, but it's actually hella cheap. Like literally $2 a month, just so I can actually like watch and cover these debates for the channel. So I guess it's kind of worth it. You get to see me be miserable, and I get to interact with at least a few of you. So yeah, I'm not sure when the third primary debate will be, but you'll probably see me covering that before the Newsom DeSantis debate, because I'm sure they'll be doing a primary debate for October. So yeah, no, thanks for tuning in. I guess I will see you all very, very soon. I'm gonna go play Red Dead Redemption 2. It's been calling my name for I don't know how long now. And I'm gonna pass out I'll leave you with a little serenade. How about that? I already ruined it. Just go away. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I'm embarrassed.